All right, A to Z family, thanks so much for joining us. This is the Maniac. We have the honor today of getting to interview bass extraordinaire, John Billings. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm very fine, Michael, and it's my honor. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about that. When did you start playing bass?
At 14, my dad on my birthday. My dad gave my brother and I a guitar and a bass and one amp, which we fought over for many years.
That's awesome. Along with that, so did you always know you were going to play bass?
No.
I mean, was that your main, I want a bass and that's what we're going to do? Or?
Music was a discovery, and I used to horse around on my grandfather's guitar a little bit and mess around. And my dad, I don't know if you remember this, you look like you might be my age.
Yeah, right.
Our parents had those Lowry organs.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd push one button and go ding, 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 and you had like big letters, G and F, and you put them on there. He had that, and he'd sit down and he'd play that, and of course, then I'm going to go over and play with it, and it was fun. And then grandfather's guitar, I'm strumming and learning chords. They'd buy me a chord book and take a lesson at school. But I think it was the 6th grade, I decided I wanted to play cello because it got me out of class.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was awesome. I got to get right out of social studies and go to do cello.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with that. I had a blast with it.
Yeah.
But at 14, I was a Kiss fan, and hey, I wanted to be Gene Simmons. So I got that bass, got like a Kiss songbook, and started having at it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and nowadays, so the Maniac's other job in life is he's a school teacher.
Yes, sir.
So,
thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you. But that having that music and that background that you got in school, that's awesome that you brought that up. Playing cello back in the day. So I know you played tons of people. I would do it damage by trying to identify everybody. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you get to play with?
I mean, it's been a really, like the song says, it's been a long, winding road. I went out to Los Angeles and got into the hair metal scene, and also kind of worked a little bit in the jazz scene there. But the hair guys embraced me because I had some musical ability and had long hair. So
right.
I ended up with some of these guys like I don't know if you remember Vinnie Moore.
Yeah.
And I did like a one-off show with those guys in Japan. David Chastain and Vinnie Moore and Kurt James. Kurt James was always getting gigs. Like whenever Yngwie would get mad and split, they'd hire Kurt because he could play the guy. Joy Tafoya. I ended up in that whole world, and then in a Sunset Strip, 80s band called Lancia, which when that whole scene folded, then I fell into Atomic Punks, and that was a cover band in Los Angeles that did Van Halen tunes. But it was great because, after I left, unfortunately, it got really popular, and then the guys from Van Halen would come out. Michael Anthony would come and play the gig, and I think he had more fun than playing with Van Halen.
Right.
Because, somebody wasn't there to hold him down.
Yeah, right.
But I did everything out there, did all kinds of stuff just to play and make a living.
Right.
And then moved to Nashville in '95, and my relationship with the Wooten Brothers led me to a bunch of gigs right out the gate, like Donna Summer.
That's awesome.
That was wonderful. 16 years, and it was an incredible run. It really was. And then when Donna was off, no artist perpetually stays on the road.
Right.
And as a freelance musician, you're perpetually looking for a way to fill in the gaps. So I would work for other artists, and I worked with Rick Springfield. I did a bunch of country people, Winona Judd and Tanya Tucker, and then I did a bunch of one-offs, which you do here in Nashville. Somebody would go, I need a band for this date.
Yeah, right.
I don't need you for the next month. And you shed their tunes, and you go and you play that gig, or there's a bunch of artists on that gig. And so a ton of the one-off scene. And then eventually it landed me a gig with Mickey Dolenz.
Yeah.
And then with my association with Mickey, when the Monkees started getting back together, and I want to say it was 2013. I'm really embarrassed that I don't know the exact date.
Right.
But or 2012. I got invited to be part of the Monkees band, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's all. That's
It's
awesome.
been so amazing. It's been an incredible ride.
Yeah. So I know for a while, Mike Nesmith.
Yeah.
He joined on the tours, and his son was too.
Yeah, Christian.
Was his son? What was his role within that? Was he the musical director?
No, Wayne Avers is the musical director, and when Michael came, he wanted to have people close to him that he knew, because every guy in the band had a band, and so when I was working for Mickey and the Monkees reconstituted, it was Davey and Peter and Mickey. Davey's band was the band, so everybody in Mickey's band basically had a year off, which was. Sounds like great. Sounds like, I have a year off. That's awesome, John. No, I was a year off of me going, I got to find some other employment.
Right.
And And then when Davey passed, the logical thing to do was to bring in Mickey's band because it was a complete whole band. Everybody knew the stuff.
Right.
And when Michael came on, he wanted to have some people that he knew. So he brought Christian in, and Christian brought his now wife, Cersei, in to sing. And we just integrated them into the band. So there's always multiple guitar parts. Definitely, Wayne and Christian will chop those up and go, well, you take the 12 string and I'll take the lick, or you take the solo and I'll do the rhythm, and they just trade it out every tune. They just figure out what they're going to do. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, could you notice a change in the arrangements from when they?
Really, what we wanted to do is get back to the arrangements, because a lot of artists, and I know because everyone I've ever worked for has done this. You go away from the arrangements. They've done it for 20, 30, 40 years. They want to do something different.
Right.
And that 2012, that when we started the Monkees, we had a mandate from the producer. We had a gentleman named Andrew Sandoval who produces all the shows for the Monkees. He's chronicled them over the years, and he's the one really who puts the whole show together, gets them together. And Andrew said, I want everybody to go revisit the recordings. And he has the masters. He has the tracks. So he'd go, what do you want, John? And I go, well, I would love to have bass on one side and just the guitar, drums, and a little vocal on the left.
Right.
And that way I could go home and I can really dial it in. And that was our mandate, was to go learn, let's get back to how the stuff was done, recorded.
Right.
And we did, and it came out really cool. Now awesome. Some things have expanded a little bit, but we always look at each other and go, let's get back.
Right.
The tracks are great.
That's incredible. So I know you said earlier that you had to play with Donna Summer. So
you made it sound like a task.
No, dude. I have a show on Sunday mornings where I play Sunday soul music, and I love.
Dude, that's where my heart lays.
I'm telling you what.
That's where my heart lays, bro. 70s, mid-70s R&B. That's when.
We can have a whole separate interview on that.
I love Kiss, but I never cry over Kiss. And I will sit in our kitchen with Amy, and I'll weep tears when certain songs come on.
I know.
Anyway.
So is it playing bass? Is there a definite difference in playing for the Monkees and playing in Donna Summer's?
Yeah,
that style.
With the Monkees, I always play with a pick.
Right.
Because everything back in that day was played with a pick. And it's sonically, you can hear it, style-wise, it makes more sense to do the pick thing.
Right.
And with Donna, it was all fingers.
Yeah.
And ironically, I love slap bass and funk bass from the 70s.
Yes.
So I came, and that was a big part of my playing style. So when I got in Donna's band, I was like, it's going to be slap heaven, baby. And really, you go back and listen to the tracks.
Yeah.
There's no slap bass on her tunes, not at all.
No.
So I had to kind of go, oh, wait a minute, I got to get back to the tracks. Just like with the Monkees, I had to get back. I had back then I was younger. I had been spoken to.
Yeah,
I had to have some people go, John, we're gonna have a little word with you about that performance and what you need to do. And but it was playing with Donna. I look at them all like it's work, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that. Okay, Donna, I need to do this for Donna.
Right.
I need to do this for the Monkees. I need to do this for Winona. I need to definitely do this for Rick. Rick wants it more. Rick Springfield wanted some more rock and roll, like a rock band.
Right.
Wear your strap lower.
Right.
Sling it a little more. Be a little more greasy.
Right. That's
awesome. You just approach it the way that the artist wants it to be approached.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, to have that much talent to be able to do that, adapt your style to each.
I love music.
Those different artists. Yeah, right.
I mean,
exactly.
I like we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I loved Kiss. Kiss got me going. But I became a prog rock fan, and then I became a huge R&B fan. And this is the days of Jocko and Stanley Clarke.
Yeah, oh my gosh,
and then I'd be listening to, the Temptations and listening to Marvin Gaye and all that amazing bass. And then getting back to even like the 90s, when the grunge guys like Mike Inez.
Yeah.
Now bass is now it's not lead bass, but it's parts again. We're back to parts. They're playing parts, like the beginning of Wood or Wood.
Yeah.
That bass line where they have a part that makes sense. It's not just eighth notes. And I love bass. So whatever the gig is, I'm attracted to it if I have a role.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Part of my love of that too, the different styles. I have two different shows. I have an 80s show that I do, and then I have a soul show, and just the differences. But I mean, just how unbelievably and then that jazz too, and some Earth, Wind and Fire, and that whole oh my gosh,
White, man.
Oh my gosh, that guy.
I used to have
legend.
a book. I had a bass book. My mom would get me whatever I want regarding music. So I want to get this book by so and so, and she'd give me the book.
Right.
So there was a book by Verdine White and another guy named Louis Satterfield.
Right.
And he was the trombone player with Earth, Wind & Fire. And apparently, I guess he was a bass player, too.
Right.
They wrote a book together, and their pictures are on the front. They're not wearing shirts. They look like cool soul 70s dudes, right? And fast forward to 1987, I moved to Los Angeles, and there was a club where Tower Power's rhythm section would be gathered on Monday nights, and everybody came. If you were anybody, if you knew what you were doing, you came to Monday night and played. Because you get to sit in with Tower Power's guys. Come on. And I sat down at a table with this cat, and I'm looking at him. He's an African-American gentleman. He's older than me, and I'm just going, I feel like we've met before or something. And all of a sudden, it just clicked before my eyes. He was the cat on the cover of that bass book. And I said, you're Louis Satterfield.
Wow.
Yes, sir. And I go, I had that book. I ate that book up, man.
That's awesome.
And he was pleased, you know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I know we just came off a really challenging year with all the COVID.
Oh, yeah.
We're coming out of that now finally. But I'm
Are
sure,
we?
Are we? Yeah. I feel like we're getting back. Yeah, right. As we sit here getting ready to put our masks back on.
Exactly.
But I know you guys have another thing that you guys do with
Wind Down Nashville. Yeah, Wind Down Nashville.
So can you talk a little bit about that? Tell us about that.
Well, as you can see, my gorgeous trophy wife over here snapping photos of us. She is a resident of Nashville. She's a unicorn. She's from here, which if you're in Nashville now, no one's from Nashville. It's like L.A. when I lived there. No one's from L.A.
Yeah. Every time I make that the trek down here, I count how many U-Hauls on that. Yeah.
This is a unicorn.
Right.
If you told everybody in this room to raise your hand if you're from Nashville, she'd be the only one of two people, maybe. So Amy has a great, really rich musical heritage. With her mother as a songwriter in the 70s in country music, with her sister, who was one of the first female drummers in Nashville.
Wow.
And she grew up in a town called Hendersonville, that's where Johnny Cash used to live. That's where a bunch of country music legends gravitated to, because it's just outside of town. It's quiet, it's woods, it's nice. So she sat on the laps of these country music musicians when she was just a kid, hanging out with their daughters, having sleepovers.
Wow.
Mel McDaniels, and all these legends. To her, it's just like, well, that's Cindy's dad, and she remembers that, and she has such great pride in what Nashville used to be musically. Oop, I don't know if I'm messing up your mic.
No, we're good.
And we wanted to have a venue. The bar is the vehicle for the venue.
Oh, right.
We wanted a place to tell stories. We force our clientele to hear our stories about Nashville and the musicianship here.
Right.
She has a love of side musicians, not just the stars.
Right.
But the people that support the musicians.
Yes.
So we have a show on Tuesday nights that we do, a live podcast, I guess you could call it, called Off-Road Ramblings. And we would bring our successful friends from the music business from all genres. Country, there's rock guys. We have Sandy Gennaro. We have Philip Schaus, from Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley's band. And then we'd have guys from Dolly Parton's band and Reba's band, and we have R&B cats in there.
That's awesome.
Tell us your story, like kind of what the conversation you and I are having.
Yeah, right,
we do it live. We let the audience ask them questions like, "What's it like on a bus?"
Kind of like a storyteller.
Yeah, storyteller saying for about an hour and a half.
Right.
And if they've got material to play, we'll let them play a little bit if they want to sell merchandise or that sort of thing. But it's all about reminding people that Nashville is and was a musical town.
Right.
There's this whole support of musicians that work their whole lives to get here, to rise to a level that's not seen anywhere else on the globe.
You're right.
And that the bar became a vehicle for that, because we just can't have a room somewhere and people talk. Yeah, no one's it's not gonna support itself. So bourbon and whiskey does.
Yeah, well, and as not only a fan and somebody who's played music before in his life too, having that opportunity to sit down in that small environment to hear artists talk about
intimate
that.
Environment.
Oh yeah, I mean that's for the music fan. That's what I think that we love to hear those stories.
Absolutely.
I mean, like you joining
She
us
made
today.
me do one, and I resisted it. It got to a point where she finally said, "I need you to do this."
Yeah,
so I did my own, and I had a blast. I was horrified until about 15 minutes after I started talking, and then I was like, "Oh, this is fun. I'm enjoying this." And people were asking engaging questions.
Yeah.
Like, how do you stay healthy on the road? That kind of
Right.
stuff. Which is like, you know what? You're right. To me, it's just we don't think about that stuff. But to everybody in that audience, they're like, "Well, how do you fly and drive and this and that, and then didn't work and do it all over again?"
Absolutely.
So
I mean, that was one of the big
thing.
things about having this interview today. I mean, when I was looking at that, I mean, like I said before, all the different people that you played with and things like that. I mean the stories. I wish we had more time. I
know this whole
minutes,
day feels like a race.
I know, right? That's what I know. That's what it is today.
I look at the back of my badge, like, oh my God,
what's my tour schedule?
I know.
Oh, but yeah, that's awesome. Just sitting down and hearing those stories. It's great, and I know my listeners out there enjoy it too.
Oh,
so,
thank you, sir. Thank you.
So if you're down this way, anybody out there, come down to Wind Down, check that out down here in Nashville, and check out John Billings. Great guy. Tons of stories. Been awesome to get to know you here today for this little bit of time.
Much.
But I want to thank everybody here for joining in, joining the Maniac, joining Mr. Billings here today on A to Z Radio, and like I said, come down to Nashville, check him out.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.